Hello again. I am doing yet another video about our sleep training process and moving from our bed and co-sleeping to the crib. Um, so my last video I was talking about how we had like a really great night with our no plan and thought that was gonna work, and it didn't. And the next night it did not go as well. It was a little shaky, but she slept until about 4:30 in the morning and then ended up in bed with us. And then the next night was a complete mess up, and she was fussy and had a really rough night, woke up a bunch of times, and was in bed with us the majority of the night. So we started reading the Sleep Ladies Good Night Sleep Tight, which is a very popular book with sleep training, especially if you want to do not crying it out. It's really good. It's got a lot of good information, and unfortunately for us, it looks like everything that she says not to do in this book, we've basically been doing. So I've been nursing her to sleep. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to rock them and pat them to sleep, because the whole point is they got to put themselves to sleep. We do all of the above. And the biggest thing about this book and this method is consistency. It's huge. And I knew that, but I didn't realize, I guess, how important it was. And now I feel terrible because I'm probably so confusing to my poor baby because we're so inconsistent. I mean, we weren't doing it on purpose. We thought, we'll try this, it doesn't work, we'll stop, we'll do our own thing, try this, it doesn't work, stop, do our own thing. And really, that's terrible. We need to really set and figure out what we're gonna do and just stick to it, because inconsistency is probably one of our biggest problems. Poor thing doesn't know what's going on. We didn't get too far into the book. We only read, there's the first part, and then there's I think 5 chapters in the first part of the book, and you read those, and they're really short but sweet, very good stuff. You read those first parts of the first part of the book through, and then the rest of the book is separated into age groups. So then you just go to your baby's age. So you're not actually reading the whole book. You're just reading the first part, which is the introduction and setting everything up and talking about why everything happens and why you do this, why you do that, and how it helps. And then you find your baby's age group and then go from there. And it touches on anything from moving from the bassinet to the crib to co-sleeping to, it basically covers everything. But like I said, we didn't get that far into it yet. We only read the very first part. And so far, from what we were reading, it's very logical. It makes sense. Everything that she says is oh, duh. Why didn't I already understand that? Why didn't I always figure that? So we read the first part, and basically it said, I'm sorry, I keep looking down. I'm going to read my notes. Make sure that both of the parents are on the same page. You don't want one parent that really wants to move to the crib and one parent that's still kind of oh, but I like co-sleeping, but I get what you're coming from, but I really like this, or vice versa. You don't want if one parent is their brain says move to the crib, but their heart says stick with co-sleeping, even that is not good. You want to make sure that you are really sure of what you want to do and that both parents are on the same page with it, because otherwise you're not going to be able to stay consistent, because you're going to keep giving in because it's not what you're really wanting and what you're really going for, if that makes sense. We haven't gotten far enough in the book to read her list of suggested soothing methods, but basically what it said so far was that you want to have a whole bunch of soothing techniques already picked out that you can pick from, so you're not just coming up with something on the spot, because then you'll end up going back to what they say that there's negative and positive, and the negative isn't negative behaviors. It's not for example, the negative would be patting their butt to get them to go to sleep, or nursing them to sleep, things like that. They call them sleep crutches. And so those are negative in the sense they're not good for sleep training, because they're not learning how to put themselves to sleep. So you're not supposed to do that. But they're not negative things to do. It's wonderful to love on your baby and pat them and hold them and sing to them and do all of those things. You just have to know when it's okay and when it's not. And especially when you're trying to do sleep training, those things are working against you. So you want to replace those negative ones with positive. And we haven't gotten far enough in the book to see her list of suggestions yet, but we understand the idea. So we need to stop with those crutches and find the more positive ways to do it that'll help her put herself to sleep. And basically the whole idea of this sleep lady's method is the sleep shuffle is what she calls it. And it's basically 3-day increments. And so when you start, one thing we were doing right is having a start date. That is a good thing to do because you want to make sure you're ready and you know what you're doing and you're focused and have your start date. And then you begin with her shuffle, which it's different for each situation, but the general idea is laying them down and sitting next to the bed and soothing them, but not touching them too much, not picking them up, just soothing them and talking to them, and unless they get hysterical. Of course, if they get hysterical, you pick them up and then you put them back down once they're calm. But basically, you sit in the chair next to the bed until they fall asleep for 3 days. And then on the 3rd day, you move to the middle of the room and you sit there and you can still talk to soothe them, but that's pretty much it. And you want to stay in the middle of the room in the chair and don't move. Don't move closer, don't move further away. Do that for 3 days. And then on the 3rd day, move to the door and so on and so forth until you're out of the room and into the hall. Basically, there's obviously a lot more to this, and it does get more specific on, for your particular situation and your child's age and everything. But that's just like the general idea of it. And they say that you don't want to go over 3 days because then it'll become something that your child expects from you. So you got to keep it up to 3 days, but not more than 3 days. And then there's like certain specific cases where you can do it shorter amount of time, especially for babies responding well to it. But like I said, this is just a general idea. So 3 days and moving yourself slowly out of the room. Another huge thing that she mentioned, which we had read about before and we've been trying to kind of implement, especially with naps, but not so much at bedtime, is where we've been failing on this part, is laying her down drowsy but awake. This is repeated multiple times in the book. Like, it's a very big point that they wanted to make, that you don't want the baby to be too asleep. So the way they put it was thinking on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being wide awake and 10 being in a deep sleep. You want them to be like a 7 or an 8. So not completely asleep and not so asleep that even if they're kind of like blinking that they won't know where they are exactly, like they won't recognize that they're being put in the crib. You want them to go into the crib awake enough that they know, I'm in the crib now, but still sleepy, so that they can kind of fall asleep on their own. And it also stresses that if you're not sure if it's, you'd rather them be more awake than more drowsy. So you definitely want them to go into the bed awake. And then that way they can learn to put themselves to sleep is the idea. And we do this, so for me and my husband, we do this with our daughter for naps. Well, I do it because he's at work, so I'm the one at home with the naps. But I usually do that too. Like, even if I do nurse her to sleep on the couch, which I don't do anymore, but at the beginning I would still make sure she was like, I'd kind of wake her up a little bit and make sure that she was awake when I'd put her in, but she was obviously still sleepy, and then she'd go to sleep. And I mean, napping has been a little bit back and forth, but for the most part it's actually been pretty successful for us. In fact, she's sleeping right now. I just put her in, she was getting sleepy watching a movie with me, and just kind of doing like the heavy eyes thing. So I picked her up and took her to the room and laid her down and gave her the pacifier, put a blanket on her, and walked out. And she kind of cried a little bit and fussed a little bit for a minute or so, and then she was fine, and she just kind of like laid in there and played with the blanket and just kind of messed around a little bit, and then she rolled over and went to sleep. And it didn't take very long at all. She was probably asleep within the first 5 or 6 minutes. And now she's continuing. She's still sleeping. My little baby's sleeping in her crib. The one thing I did do differently today, though, is I threw one of my shirts in there so that it would smell like me. I don't know if this is like a real thing, but I've read it a couple times and I thought it wouldn't hurt, you know, give her one of my shirts. It's just a nice soft shirt. It's not too big or loose that she can kind of get lost in it. So right now she's napping, and naps have been pretty successful, except that they don't always last as long as I'd like for them to last. I'm still not really sure how long she's supposed to be napping for during the day, but we wake up at she wakes up pretty late. It's obviously because our sleep schedule is all messed up and we're working on sleep training. It changes a lot, but it's usually sometime between 7 and 8 or 8:30. And when we have a good sleep night, it's usually like around 8 or 8:30 when she wakes up. And so, you know, we wake up and do like a little morning thing where we playing on the floor and eating breakfast and nursing and watching maybe a cartoon or something, and then she takes a nap around lunchtime. So like right now it is 11:35 and she went down right around 11. So hopefully she'll sleep for a couple hours, but a lot of times when I do this, she doesn't sleep for very long. She only sleeps for like 30 or 45 minutes, and I'm not sure if that's normal or not. Hopefully it's in the book, and I'll let you guys know when I read about that more. Or maybe you guys could give me some feedback on how your babies sleep or how they nap during the day. But I mean, I try to let her nap anytime that she seems tired, and I'm hoping that's enough. So back to the nighttime sleeping though. This book really does seem really helpful, lots of really great information, and it feels a lot more like something that we are comfortable doing. Like, we read about other methods, the Ferber method, which is the one that we actually tried, the extinction method, which is the regular cry it out as most people know it. And you know, these methods just didn't sound right to us from the beginning. The Ferber one we really weren't comfortable with when we tried it, and just the first part of this book, just getting into the start of it, we already feel much more comfortable with it. It feels like the right fit for us, for our family. So I'm pretty excited to finish reading this book and really implement it. So I think right now we're still going to try to do our start date on Friday, but since we're still trying to read about it, we don't want to confuse her too much with the inconsistency. So if we're not ready by Friday, then we'll just push the date. And because I feel so bad about being so inconsistent, we're going to stop putting her down in the crib at night and then bringing her into the room in the middle of the night when she wakes up, because it's confusing to her, and that's a big no-no in the book. So we're just going to start from the beginning, sleeping in the bed with us, go back to regular co-sleeping. It's where she's most comfortable. It's what's most regular right now, since we've been kind of back and forth with the crib and the bed. She spends most of the time in the bed anyways, so we're just gonna keep it in the bed and try to keep it as consistent there as possible until we make the next change, so that it's a smoother change and it's not so back and forth and confusing for her. You know, we're trying our best, and that's the best we can do. And I was feeling really guilty last night. Like, I can't believe we've messed her up so bad with all this inconsistency and back and forth, and she must be so confused. And I do feel bad about it, but you know, we're new parents. We're trying to figure out what to do. We're not sure. We're doing the research. I mean, we're not just, you know, being completely carefree about it. Like, we really are trying our best, and that's the best you can do, and you can't be too hard on yourself for it. And that's what I keep telling myself. Like, I just can't be too hard on myself about this whole sleeping thing, because this is all brand new to us. We're trying it, and we're trying to learn the best that we can, but you know, we've never done it before. So I really am excited to see how this goes once we get further into the book. So if I don't do an update tomorrow, the next day, I'll do it the next time that we start doing the new sleep method with the Sleep Lady guidelines. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you... And then my battery died on my camera. Sorry about that cutout, but all I was going to say was the ending to the video, that I hope this was helpful, and I'll be doing another update probably after we start doing the Sleep Lady method, unless we read more tonight, and I might do another video to share the rest of what we we read about and figure out, but I think I got most of the gist of it today. So if I don't do another video on that tomorrow, then the next one will be probably on Saturday, which will be the night after we start doing the new Sleep Lady method. So if you like to see more of these, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you just want to tell me your experience, which I would absolutely appreciate. You know, we're just on this journey. See where it takes us. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.